What We Cannot See Pioneers, Season 2, Episode 2. As Gutnoa sat on his carrier truck, petrified with the grim reality he had just encountered, General George and the other minifig commanders continued onward. They gave orders to move further into the surreal world they had now entered. As the convoy progressed, they noticed various paths that could be taken inside this chamber, which obviously led to other areas of the Biacean's lair. Gutnoa saw these passages as hallways. But Gutnoa kept his mouth shut about this fact, allowing his men to focus on what was important. General George admitted to his fellow commanders that he had no idea where to go with his men. "We'll just have to look everywhere, huh?" he would ask his men. They nodded, not knowing what else to do. But at a certain point in their progression through the massive chamber that Gutnoa knew was in fact a house, a noise sounded off. It was a low, moaning noise. It echoed throughout the entire chamber, coming from every possible direction. The minifig soldiers readied their weapons and formed a defensive ring around their leaders' carrier trucks, while Archimod, Icarax, and Gavla raised their own weapons separate from the minifig grouping. The groaning grew louder and deeper, and the ground beneath the army began faintly rumbling. Everyone in the convoy was frightened, darting their glances everywhere, hoping to get a decent look at what was coming. Everyone except Gavla, who raised her weapons to appear as though she was fighting with the minifigs, but was raising them to conceal her sickly grin. The moaning stopped. The minifig soldiers held their position, still looking around. Two sets of noises began sounding off, but this time from two different, exact areas. One was the sound of clanking, and the other the sound of a very distorted, unnatural scream. Shortly after they heard the sounds, the Biacean made its next move. Two hideous monsters of the same kind encountered outside appeared in the distance in front of the army. One was a flat platform with various pieces of minifig architecture on top of it, shooting out long tentacles with headless torsos of minifigs fused to guns. This platform monster walked out on a set of 5 legs made out of bionicle parts. The other monster was two-legged, with one what looked like a large blade-like appendage jutting out of its drooping gut. From this gut extended a long neck, and on top of it a grotesque face that was wreathing wildly while producing a bone-chilling scream. Both monsters were attached to the long tentacles that the Biacean used to control them from wherever it was hiding in its lair. A battle erupted inside the Biacean's lair. The minifig soldiers began firing all of their weaponry at both of the monsters, with King Archimod, Icarax, and Gavla leaping over the minifig armies to attack a specific target, the screaming monster. That monster's tentacle was well concealed, and they thought they could get to it easier than the minifigs. General George saw this and yelled an order. "Soldiers, redirect your fire to the monster with 5 legs! Our bionicle allies are taking care of the other!" Obeying, the minifigs turned and focused all of their power on the platform monster. "Spread out! Loose formation!" General George yelled, seeing how many of the soldiers were falling dead as a result of the platform monster's own firepower. The screaming monster was using its long knife blade to engage King Archimod. Archimod was holding his ground but knew he couldn't forever. However, as the king fought the screaming monster, Icarax had the opportunity to swing behind it and cut off its tentacle. As he did, the screaming of the monster became higher pitched before it collapsed to the ground, dead. As the minifigs kept the platform monster occupied, Archimod waved his hand to the tentacle behind that monster, suggesting they sneak behind that and cut that one too. They did just that, and Icarax swung his blade into the long tentacle, slicing it in two. Immediately, the tentacles holding up the headless minifigs on top of the platform monster went limp and flopped down to the ground. The 5 legs snapped, unable to support the platform monster anymore. Icrax saw for a moment the remaining bit of the tentacle formerly attached to the platform monster slither away into a crevice. The Biocene was far from beaten. General George looked very sad. A good 10 minifig soldiers died in that firefight, and he knew more casualties were to come. Captain Mike saw this in his companion and patted him on the shoulder, saying, "General, at least now we can rest assured that we are indeed on the right path."